Thank you, Mr. Ho Kim Hui, and hello everyone. My name is Pang Daria. As y'all have heard about pre-writing and drafting the main body and appendix already, so now let me clarify about review the main body and appendix. Before getting to know this point, so let me tell you with a main key term first. What is appendix? Appendix is a section that contains additional information. Any information that is too extensive for the main part of the report and would serve to distract or interrupt the flow of the report belongs in the appendix. Moving to the second part, it is how to review it. Once, you have to write your detailed findings. After writing your detailed findings, try to forget them for a while. Then come back with a fresh mind. Next, assess what you have actually written and how it came across, rather than still thinking about what you had intended to write and get across. The last but not least is put yourself in the reader and be highly self-critical. Moving to the last part of my presentation is what should you do while read and reread your draft. In here, we will show you with the tip that you should do. Once, assess whether the substructure of the main body, such as the logical, sectional, or creative, it is really the most suitable one to present your facts and arguments. Second, examine the layout and general appearance. Next, determine whether the tone and balance are correct. Then, review the use and format of tabulation and appendix. After that, check the accuracy of figures and calculation. Moreover, ensure you have acknowledged all of your sources. The last one is check the use of English, punctuation, and spelling. All of these tips is very important. Of course, this self-assessment should give you a good idea of whether it is necessary to restructure your framework and rewrite any of your main body and appendix in order to get your message across as you had intended. Here's come to the end of my presentation, so let's move to Miss Mininit. She will elaborate more with drafting the reference, conclusion, recommendation, introduction, and summary. Thank you.
Thanks, Daria, for giving me the floor. My name is Kotsuan Menediet. I'm going to present drafting the references, conclusions, recommendations, introduction, and summary. While revising the main body and appendixes, we should start working on these sections. The reason why we shouldn't wait until the last minutes to complete them is because they are interconnected with the main body and appendixes, and you won't lose track of what you are doing. Also, it is to avoid the risk of writing the report twice. So what is reference? Reference refers to a way of acknowledging the sources of information that you use. It could be from textbook, book, journal article, newspaper, quote, study guide, so on and so forth. So every time you use the sources of information, you need to formally acknowledge them in a reference section, bibliography, or a resources section, and it should begin on a separate page. There are four main importance of referencing. The first one is to avoid plagiarism, or we call it academic crime. We include reference to give credit to the work produced by other people and to prevent ourselves from facing extreme academic penalties. So the second point is to help reader to read the original source of information in case they want to be autonomous learner to broaden their knowledge area. Third, to add credibility to your piece of work so that the reader trusts your rigorous work as you have gathered many corroborated evidence. Fourth, show that you have researched extensively to gather information, which imply that the researcher has high knowledge competency in the area of expertise. Four main referencing styles that are commonly used are APA, MLA, Harvard, and Chicago. The use of reference style varies in accordance to different academic requirements and it serves different purposes as well. APA style is commonly used in education, psychology, and science fields. MLA style is mainly used in social science and humanity fields. Harvard style is mainly used in humanities and social science fields. Chicago is commonly used in business, fine arts, and history field. As you have learned in year 2, referencing style share common components of the formats. It just have different order and different written styles. Now let's take a look at APA style. The order begins with author's name, year of publication in bracket, article title, journal names in italic, volume number in italic, issue number, and the page number range of the articles. What is conclusion? Conclusion is used to provide final words to potential funders. It emphasizes the main messages of the report, and it must follow logically from your main findings. Here are 4 tips for writing conclusions. The first one is to highlight the key finding. You should show the overall significant central issue or finding. Return to the theme in the introduction. In this point, remind the reader that of the most important points that have been made in the report and provide a brief overview of the key points and make sure that you don't add any details in conclusion. Synthesize. In this point, you should provide a basic synthesis of everything that I've stated before and try to connect them logically so that your conclusion will sound like a coherent single thought rather than a bunch of random ideas. Last, point to implication. In this point, you should address the future perspective of your research and consider issue. It may be a suggestion or a call to action. So here is the example of conclusion. You can see that it's provide a brief overview of the key findings and the idea flow logically. Also, it's have point to future implication. Recommendation. Recommendation address the limitation and recommend solution. It suggests actions to be taken in response to the finding of a report. Effective recommendations should include the following things. First, it is they describe action to be taken in order to tackle the problem. Set it in clear and specific language, so the language used have to be concise and do not have any vague or ambiguous meaning. Express in order of importance, like you should know the degree of the importance and write it accordingly, are based on the case shown in the body of the report. Introduction tells the reader what it is all about. It is a brief paragraph designed to tell the reader what the report covered. It should attract readers' interest and include everything readers need to know before the rest of the report. An effective introduction should answer the following questions. Why was the report written? You should be able to tell the purpose of writing the report that addressed the particular problem, who requested it, whether donor, funder, any department or organization, when, the period of time, and the exact date. What sources of information did you use, whether you use primary source, secondary source, or tertiary source? What limitation did you work under? You should elaborate the scope of the report, of what you cover and what are not covered. What was your method of working? Give details of what method of assessment were used to investigate the particular problem. How is the report structured? You should describe the flow of sections or main feature of your report. Also, keep in mind that your introduction should be short and do not include idiom, jargon, abbreviation in your introduction. What is summary? Summary briefly describes the content of the report. It should cover the aims of the report, the outline, main findings, main conclusions, and main recommendation. The overall opinion should be written accurately and unambiguously. Also, remember that the summary is the first thing that the reader reads, so it should provide the reader with a clear and helpful overview of the content of the report. Summary has two functions. First is to provide the basis of what reader is about to read. Second is to provide an outline of the report if reader is not going through the entire report. So here is the example of summary. As you can see in the first sentence, it states the topic of the project. Second sentence, it tells the objective of the project. Third sentence, the finding. Fourth sentence, conclusion. And the fifth sentence is about the recommendation for further research. That's the end of my point. Now let's move on to the next point, which will be presented by Danae.
Hello everyone, I am Danae, the fourth presenter, and before I start, I would say thank you to the previous presenters for their clear explanation on their respective parts. So after drafting the main body, references, conclusion, summary and everything, we finished putting the flesh on the bone. So right now we have everything in hand and we are just a few steps away from issuing our report. But before we can issue a good report, we need to check and amend the drafted report to ensure that there is no error. They say hold it for 2 weeks. This is a classic rule in advertising. People in advertising industry usually leave what they have written for 2 weeks and come back fresh and reread their work. However, given that we have a very short time frame, 2 weeks is just too long for us. Therefore, we can hold it a few days or at least a few hours and then come back and reread our report. So when coming back and we do when we read the draft, please try to look at first the flow, whether it goes well or we need to rearrange the order of the information, and then try to look at the links or signposts, whether the link is appropriate or there is adequate signposts or connectors that linking one argument to the other argument. And last but not least, try to look at the intended meaning, whether what you had in mind is whether what you have written is actually what you had in mind. So basically what I have told you earlier is just an overview of what we need to do when we come back and read. So before issuing a report, we need to do the checking and preparing for the final version. So let's take a closer look at checking. What is there in checking? Basically, checking may involve 3 stakeholders: you, yourself, your check, your colleague or classmates or your peers check, and last but not least, your managers or your lecturers or your supervisors checked. So with your check, pay more attention to the meaning and the flow. Make sure that what is written in the report conveys what you want to communicate with the readers. And beside the contents, the meaning and the flows, you should also look at the format layout, such as numbering, headings and subheading, font styles and font size, margin and spacing. This is just little details in the report, but these little things matter. It's because it shows your effort in the report as well as your professionalism. And when you do your check, there may not be many problems because you are the writer. So ask a colleague or classmate or peers to read the amended report and give comments or feedbacks. it is always easier to detect the errors or in other people's writing than in your own writing. So your colleagues or your peers can detect the errors or ambiguities in your report, and they do it better than you do. And they can also provide constructive feedbacks for improvement. Sorry, the mouse stuck. Improvements, because for example, they would suggest you to use figures instead of table to show data because it would look better, or it would be more make the report more comprehensive. And last but not least, by asking your colleagues or classmates or peers to check your report, you can see what impact your report is likely to have on the reader, because your colleague, classmates, or peer is reading and giving feedback based on the reader's point of view. Last, it is your managers or lecturers or supervisors checked. Pass further amended report to your line managers or lecturers or your supervisors to have a look, because they will be able to view the report in a broader aspect, because due to their experience in report writing and in their field. When they look, they may look for its technical contents, overall relevance, and level of sensitivity, especially the political sensitivity, because they will have the credit in writing in the report. They will take the accountability in the report, and the report itself, once its issues, its concern the organization or the companies as a whole. So they may look at it carefully. And basically, your managers often follow these 7 steps when checking your report. First, they will assimilate. They will look at the report objectives. What is the report trying to achieve? Then they will question the accuracy and the completeness of the report. Are all the facts or argument and conclusion accurate enough in the report, or is everything completed? They will question those, so be prepared to answer those questions. And they will evaluate on the significance of the findings. They will look at how important of the finding in this report. Next, they will check for required evidence or practicality of their recommendation. They will look at will you need to provide further evidence to the report, or is the recommendation you put in the report doable for the recipient or the stakeholder? Then the next step is amend. They will look at the structure. They will tell you that whether the report need to be restructured or you can go with the same flow. And then they will also next steps is editing steps. They will have the information checked. They will look at the information that needs to be changed, or they will question are the most important findings, conclusion and recommendation is given in the report already, or should less important information be omitted from the report. And then the last step is finalize. They will look at the required standard of the report. They will check whether the report written is up to the standard required by the recipient, because some recipient are detail oriented. They want everything in the report, but some other recipient are straightforward. They just want you to go straight to the point without so many details. And after at least three drafts, one from your checked, one from your colleagues, from your colleagues checked and the other one from your line managers check, there will be less errors. So we can now prepare for the final version. And there are 3 reasons why you should be responsible for preparing the final version. First, it saves your line manager's time because you know everything in the report, so you should know where to change. And second, it will show that you did not take criticism for granted because you ask your line managers, your supervisors, and your colleagues to have a check for you. So you need to show them that you did not just ask them for the sake of asking, you take it seriously. Okay. And last but not least, it will be a consistency of style in the report. It will result in one style report rather than just a handful. It's rather than just a work from different hands, because you know that everyone have different styles in organizing the report. So you should be the one who prepare it so that there's only one style in the report. So the most essential task to do in preparing stage is proofreading. After checking, you still need to do proofreading. Proofreading is not just reading for contents and the flow of ideas. It is also to check spelling and grammar use. So let's take a look at these 3 examples. First, spell check will not find words which are misused but spelled right. And the second sentence is there won't be enough natural resources to support the productive of such large demand. And the last sentence is, it is no wondering that advertisings are bad for company in the UK, Sheffield and Germany. McDonald's and Coca-Cola are good brand, and Gates do good marketing job in Microsoft. So these 3 sentences contains error, and believe me or not, the errors in these 3 sentences was not detected in Microsoft Word, because an ordinary spell checker or grammar spell checker will find few or no errors in the sentences in the previous slide. See, in this slide they will find only few or there's no error at all. Because why? Because check tools in word processor program only detect how the word is spelled, not when it is used correctly. So let's go back and see the sentence. So this sentence, each word in this sentence is spelled right. So the grammar checked or spell checked in the Microsoft Word does not detect any errors. And so check tools in Word processor program do not detect it unless you have those sophisticated program that can detect grammar, and you need to pay for it. So spell checkers and grammar checkers are only as good as a writer's ability to use it. It helps you, but you need to know how to use it. So you need to think about any changes suggested by the program equipped in the computer, rather than just simply accept what's suggested to be correct. So these checkers, spell checkers and grammar checkers helped you, but you also need to check yourself and think about it again. So again, proofreading your own work is difficult and insufficient, as you tend to be loose or you are more familiar with your own work. So do ask someone else who has not been working on the report to help proofread your report, and then they can give you more feedback and more details on the spelling or grammar use in the report written. So, and here are some useful techniques for proofreading. First, print out a copy of a report because it is easier to read off screen and it is easier to mark the mistakes on paper, and you can easily see those mistakes and change it and amend it. And second, use a ruler to slow down your reading so that you can read line by line. And third, read the report out aloud. It slows down your reading and you can listen to how it sounds. And next is read the report backwards. This sounds weird, but it helps us spot spelling mistakes because we sometimes got tricked by our brain in a way that we cannot spot the spelling mistake because we get the meaning by the context, not by the words itself. So we just continue reading and then we get the meaning. So we don't always pay attention to those minor spelling mistakes. And the next tips is limit your proofreading to one small section at a time. Do not rush to finish the whole report at once. Try to break it down into small sections and take a short break before proceeding to the next sections. And next is proofread when you are most fresh. When you don't feel fresh or you don't feel like reading, do not force yourself because proofreading is about reading the details of the report. So read it when you feel the most alert. It can be in the early morning or whenever you feel good. And the last tip is try to proofread when you know you will have peace and quiet, and you can avoid interruption from the telephone or visitors. So at the end of the day, we already checked and prepared the final versions. It looks like your report is ready to issue. However, issuing a report requires some other steps, and Panya will tell you more what are those steps. So Panya, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anne, for giving such a clear explanation on each point. So, hello everyone, my name is Kutsapanya. Without further ado, let's move to the last point, which I am talking about issuing the report. So, what does it mean to issue the report? I think issuing the report here means to send report out or to put report forth in some certain form. And in order to do so, there are some steps to be taken. The first one is discussion, the second one is clearing, the third one is circulation, the fourth one is agreeing, last but not least, issuing. So now let me tell you briefly about the 5 steps. The first one is discussion. In this step, you should discuss the finding and confirm the accuracy of your finding with your key recipient. And this step is very important because it means that you call for your recipient personal touch as well as you call for the expression of their opinion and point of view regarding your finding. The second step is clearing. The report should be amended in the light of any mistake. Moreover, any corrective action should be agreed in this step. And it's also advisable to keep the note of the mistakes throughout the course of report writing. It's called, you will know that which part that you make changes or which part that you modify. The third step here is circulation. So when you finish discussing and correcting your finding, the report should now be revised. And then after that, the report should be circulated from one to another for the right reasons. And the next one is agreeing. So besides discussing, clearing, and circulating, you also has to make sure that your findings are agreed after you perform the first 3 steps. Last but not least is issuing. In this step, it is high time that your report should be issued. So somehow we might ask ourselves that why should we follow this step just to issue the report? Well, we should follow this step because there are some advantages. Like you can see on the screen here, there are 5 advantages. The first one is that it paves the way for any recommendation. And the second one is prepare the recipient for any criticism which may be in the final report. And the third advantage is that these 5 steps can allow you to adapt the tone of the report in the light of recipient initial reactions. And the tone here may refer to the writer's attitude toward the reader as well as toward the subject of the report. And the fourth advantage is that these steps can increase the probability that the finding will be accepted if they has been fully discussed and the recipient view has been taken into account. And the last one, it can help you to avoid errors and misunderstanding which would otherwise undermine the credibility and damage your reputation. And after following the 5 steps, the final approval of the report should be from the writer line manager, and envelope, paper, label, covering letter should also be made up for the final report. And also we should record the full detail of all issues and try to ensure that each person receives a copy of the report. And in short, this chapter is concerned with the clinical process of ordering, classifying, and sequencing. And the order of writing and reviewing the report should be as follows. The first one is pre-write, second one draft the main body and appendix, the third one review the main body and appendix, the fourth one draft the references, conclusion, recommendation, introduction, and summary. The fifth one is to check and amend the report. Last but not least, issue the report. For this part, you should take the overview of your report before you begin to draft it. And for this one, you should begin with the section or subsection that you feel most confident about. And this one, you should put yourself in your reader's shoe and be highly self-critical about your content. And this one should be written after you complete your main body and appendix. And for the fifth order here is check and amend the report. You should print a copy of your report and ask people to check and amend it. And the last one here is you should follow the 5 steps that I have mentioned earlier, like discussing, clearing, circulating, agreeing, and then you can issue the report. Writing a report will be straightforward if you follow the such order that my group has briefly explained you. This is the end of our presentation today, and I hope that our information, our explanation will be a handy tool for you to develop your report, especially to help you to write and revise your report. And as always, please let us know if you have any question about our presentation by leaving a comment below. Thank you so much.